Look, the Chargers, Chris, they were almost the 1 seed in 2018. We talked earlier about that Ravens-Chargers playoff game. If the Chargers had beaten the Ravens on that Saturday night at home, they very well may have been the top seed. What a difference. We saw how close it was this year for the 49ers and the Seahawks in the NFC. It was pretty close last year for the Chiefs and the Chargers in the AFC, and how different that season might have been, how different our perception of the Chargers would be right now. But, even though they don't have Phillip Rivers, even though they don't have a big-time franchise quarterback right out of the gates, and you can hear the whole podcast at youtube.com/NBC Sports, wherever you can find your podcast, the full conversation available. Tyrod Taylor, there's a lot of belief in Tyrod Taylor. This is one of those teams that I think is in a great spot. Nobody's going to be saying, the Chargers are going to be pretty good this year, and that's one of those ways that teams like the Chargers sneak up on people.
Yeah, well, the AFC West, I think, has a couple of those teams, really all three teams other than the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chargers and the Denver Broncos are two teams specifically to me that I have my eyes on. But the Chargers, yeah, again, we know how close they were in so many games last year that could have turned out different ways to where they could have been in the playoff conversation. Certainly, Phillip Rivers didn't have his best year. We know that. But I think they're trying to tell you they're trying to play a different style of football, a different brand this year. They're going to play through their defense and their run game more. Anthony Lynn's a run game expert. So I think with him and having a quarterback like Tyrod Taylor, who does take care of the football but does have physical ability to make plays, that are off schedule, I think they're going to try to play that. And then like Chris Harris Jr. said, there's just so much to excite you about this defense. And I think, they're going to take the approach a little bit maybe like we saw, the New England Patriots or the Broncos team of 2015. I was saying the Patriots of last year where they play through the defense and try to win games 23-17 or 20-14. And I think their team is built to do that, and they have a very good chance of doing it.
Yeah, and I agree. And Chris Harris Jr., look, this guy is a great, great story, undrafted, and part of the conversation included his experience in 2011, a lot like what guys are going through this year. He comes in as an undrafted free agent in an offseason with no offseason program because of the lockout, and he still makes the roster. And he ends up becoming one of the best nickel corners in all of football. He's not a big guy. He is incredibly skilled. And this is one of the – and that's why I'm surprised the Broncos let him get away, Chris, because this is one of the great success stories for John Elway, finding Chris Harris Jr. and having that organization develop him into what he is. And now they see him leave for a team in the division, and they're going to have to worry about him twice per year. He knows the personnel. He knows Drew Lock. He knows a lot about that team. And I'm a little extra nervous about playing the Chargers if I'm a Broncos fan this year.
Yeah, well, I get that. There's certainly, the Broncos, we're excited about what they have on the offensive side of the ball, some of the young talent. I think that's one of those offenses that you and I both look at to go, watch out, everybody. It's going to explode on the NFL this year between the system and the players. But yeah, you're right. Listen, Chris Harris Jr., experience, winning pedigree, and then still an incredible amount of talent and high-level play there to be had with Chris Harris Jr. Denver just felt like they probably couldn't pay him and deal with it, but that's a huge gain for the Chargers. When you break down the Chargers, you sit here and go like, wow, they got Linval Joseph on the defensive line. They needed some help on the interior D tackle. We know they didn't need pass rushers. They got Kenneth Murray in the first round at linebacker. Holy cow. Derwin James, one of the second best safety in football to me, only behind Jamal Adams. Two good corners in Casey Hayward and Chris Harris Jr. That's unbelievable. They improved their offensive line, getting Brian Bulaga. They traded for Trey Turner with the Carolina Panthers. That was really their big concern on the offensive side of the ball, in my opinion. It's just, offensive line play has been below average the last few years with the Chargers. So I think they did a really good job of addressing some of the needs they needed to, address and to take their team to, I don't want to say the next level, but certainly to improve them, to get them back in the playoff combo. And I would be shocked, Mike, if they're not in the playoff combo late December, sitting there last 2-3 games fighting for a spot.
Especially with 7 teams now per conference. And one last thing to keep in mind, Tyrod Taylor, 26-23 as a starter. Think about the teams that he has played for. Think about the teams he has started for, specifically those Buffalo teams. Think about the weapons he had at his disposal in Buffalo. Think about the weapons he'll have at his disposal with the Chargers.
Right.
Maybe now we know why they didn't pursue Cam Newton. Maybe we know now why they're willing to let Justin Herbert sit for a year or so. Maybe it's not going to be Tyrod Taylor just holding the spot until they think Herbert's ready to enter the fray.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.